Okay, trying this again because the last time I did it, I accidentally did without sound. So, I'm going to be doing a match replay. Another match replay. It's going to be a little different because it's a list that I've been doing a little bit of experimenting with. When Wishclaw Talisman got printed, I wanted to see if it could be used to make a list that was more, I don't know, closer to like normal Storm or previous Doomsday list instead of the Frenzy Inspired list. Now, I'm not going to say this list is good. It's been kind of fun. I have not been super impressed by this list, but I had a fun match with it earlier today, so I figured I would show it off and kind of, at least do this match replay. So anyway, here's the list. It's straight bug. You could probably even do this in blue-black because there's no green in the main deck. But I put green for some sideboard cards. Basically, it's using some draw fours to give you a little bit of gas in decks where card advantage matters more than your life total. And it has Wishclaw Talismans as a tutor. And it's killing with Tendrils of Agony instead of Jace like the old lists might have. Anyway, we'll just jump to the match for the replay here. It was this one, I think. Don't think I've played any since. So, interesting that the chat is there. Let's see if I can just close that out. That's better. Alright, so I win the roll, and that's a perfectly serviceable 7, so I keep it. It is very mana heavy, so I'm looking for some business off this Preordain, but I don't think this 7 would be worth throwing away. So start off with Preordain, and I keep the Duress, bottom the land, pass. My opponent leads on Tropical Island, I believe. Yep, so just drop pass for my opponent, which makes me think it's probably like Rug, and they're holding up Stifle, or potentially like Spell Pierce or Spell Snare, and their threat is probably like Ren or Goyf or whatever. But anyway, so I decide that I'm just going to play the second basic and pass, since assuming it's a Rug, they're not putting me under any pressure, so there's no reason to try to kill them. Now, my opponent ponders. Yeah, ponder. And then they play Underground Sea and Thoughtseize. And now this is making me think that they might actually be on Storm, and especially once they take my Duress, I'm definitely thinking Storm. So when on my turn I draw Thoughtseize, I decide that I'm just going to Thoughtseize them back. And it turns out that they are on Stryfo Pile. So double force, Ass Trophy, Plague Engineer, Punishing Fire. So there's like 3 cards that don't really matter right here. And 2 forces. And for what it's worth, taking the force will mean they don't have another force, or they don't have another blue card for the force. But more likely than not, they're going to draw another blue card before I can find a solution here. Or before I can find business, I mean. But anyway, I take one of the forces and pass the turn. And so now I'm basically just kind of playing draw go until I can try to find a way to win, which is not a great spot to be in. So probably the best draw here would actually be one of the draw fours to try and gas back up before Plague Engineer becomes a real threat. They very astutely put it on Goblin in case I have main deck empty. So I just draw another Writ, play my land and pass. Now they're not hitting any cantrips or anything either, and they're not getting any lands. Probably if they find a blue card, they'd be inclined to not cantrip right away, because they want to hold on to a blue card, like a Ponder or something, for to go along with their Force of Will. So I really would love to find some cantrips. They found a Ren and 6, which incidentally doesn't actually do anything for them because they haven't drawn any fetch lands, which is kind of funny. But it does tick up, and it gets them closer to the emblem, which would be a huge problem. So I drew the Thoughtseize, and I decide I'm not going to Thoughtseize right away, because I want to hold on to that Thoughtseize for my combo turn. But unfortunately, they drew a discard spell, and they Inquisition me, and they take my Thoughtseize. So it's possible that I should have Thoughtseized then, but I figured holding for the combo turn would be better. So I'm still just sitting here, playing draw go, hoping to eventually draw, something that matters. Getting beat down and discarded. Their Ren still isn't doing anything, which is pretty funny. But it also means that they've only drawn gas, more or less. So I think it's this turn. Yep, so this is the turn where I think my opponent makes potentially a crucial mistake. So they just Thoughtseize me last turn. They know everything that's in my hand. So when I cast this Wishclaw Talisman, they should just let me... they should just let it resolve, because they have Assassin's Trophy. They can destroy it. Instead, they force it. And I'm pretty sure that was a mistake, because the only thing I could get that would help them, or help me, would be if I did have Empty the Warren's Main, and they have Plague Engineer that's stopping that. So if they let it resolve, there basically isn't anything that I could get that they couldn't Force of Will afterwards. So I just don't think there's a good reason for them to force this Wishclaw Talisman. And they pitched Drown in the Loch, which is more or less useless at this point to them. I want to look at Exile, because destroying creatures isn't going to matter against me, and countering a spell with confirmed mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in the controller's graveyard. Oh, it's less than or equal to. So yeah, they're pitching another counter spell. And so yeah, I don't know. I don't think this was, I mean, it probably was the only other blue card in their hand, but at any rate, I don't think they should have countered my Wishclaw Talisman. I think that was a huge mistake, because they basically lost 2 counter spells when they could have just Trophied the Wishclaw when they untapped, because they're going to get to untap. Anyway, so opponent makes a big fucking blunder, in my opinion, and hits me again. So I go down to 11, and then what do? They tap out for Oko. So Oko doesn't really do anything, but it could potentially make the clock substantially faster, or just gain them some life and make it harder for me to kill them. But at any rate, they're tapped out, and I know one of the cards in their hand is an Ass Trophy. So at this point, there's not really anything that they can do, theoretically not anything that they can do to stop me, and I'm lucky enough to draw a draw 4. So naturally it makes sense for me to yeet here. So I hit that yeet. I cast 1 Threshold Cabal Ritual and then cast Cruel Bargain. There's no reason to spend the other mana just yet, or play out the other spells just yet. Cruel Bargain draws me more mana and another draw 4. So I cast a 2nd Cabal Ritual, play the Infernal Contract, and in another stroke of luck, that draws me Doomsday and a cantrip and even more mana, which means that I have plenty of mana to be able to cast Doomsday, putting myself to 1 life, and just ponder into the Doomsday pile and draw Tendrils, because they're only at 15 and my storm count is going to be over 10. So I don't even need to cast another draw 4, which is good because I can't anyway, considering that I'm only at 2 life and this Doomsday is going to put me down to 1. So this actually lets me hide a few spells in my pile, which makes sense to do when you have the opportunity to do that. I don't know why this Misty Rainforest is highlighted. It shouldn't be. Maybe I just misclicked that or something. But anyway, so what I ended up doing was putting the extra Wishclaw Talismans and the Conjurer's Bauble and another Doomsday and stuff in the pile. Just stuff that maybe it'd be better if they didn't know that I had, to confuse them about what my deck's supposed to do. Make them speculate about what might be hidden in the pile. But anyway, they die. So anyway, they died to Tendrils. So let's go to game 2. So I made some sideboarding errors for game 2. Primarily that I did not bring in Abrupt Decay. So I brought in the Veil of Summers and I think 1 Flusterstorm and the Sylvan Libraries. So this hand's pretty alright. I'm going to keep this. I put back the extra Lion's Eye Diamond, and I figure if I find a Doomsday, this could win on turn 2 or win on turn 2 or win on turn 3 with Flusterstorm for protection. So it's fine. But we'll quickly see why the oversight of not bringing in did draw the Doomsday, which is nice. Quickly see why the oversight of not bringing in the Abrupt Decays is an issue. Because what's going to happen here? Opponent ponders, plays land, passes. I draw another Brainstorm. So I decided to just Brainstorm here because if I draw a discard spell, I'll be able to discard spell and maybe take their only relevant interaction, or if I find like discard spell and land in the best case scenario, I can discard and have the third mana up to be able to combo off with protection next turn. So I spend the Brainstorm here, and I do find discard and mana to be able to kill them next turn. So what I decide to do is I think I put back Darkrit and then Lotus Petal on top, and you maybe could argue you want to put back Doomsday on top to protect yourself from discard spells, but I was a little concerned about potential Surgical Extraction, which I suppose would be bad anyway because it would take my Brainstorm and I wouldn't have a cantrip, so I probably shouldn't have been worried about Surgical there. But anyway, it's not hugely important what I put back on top. So I duress this turn because next turn I'll be able to protect my combo with Flusterstorm. They respond with Brainstorm, I believe. And yep. So they Brainstorm, and then I duress, and I see an issue. Leovold. I literally can't beat Leovold. Like, actually, factually can't beat it. Because my combo relies pretty heavily on drawing cards. And I'm not in anywhere close to a position to, like, draw a bunch of rituals naturally and try and natural tendrils them to death. And they have a Jace the Mind Sculptor, so if they have a third land and then can find a fourth land, then they're almost certainly going to pull way ahead of me and I'll never have a chance to be able to natural tendrils. So basically I'm hoping that they don't have a third land. But more likely than not, they just hid their third land. But anyway, I take the Thoughtseize here and cross my fingers because they don't really have anything else going on besides that. So if they don't have a third land and they need to ponder for the third land, I might be able to win the game. But alas, they have a third land and I just scoop. I'm not even gonna, I just scoop to the Leovold. I'm not beating the Leovold. So we'll go to game 3. Back on the play. This hand is almost good. I think if I had like one of these lands was a cantrip, I probably would have kept it. But it's much too susceptible to discard or counter magic with like only one thing going on. So I throw it back. This hand isn't a whole lot better, but it at least sort of has a plan where I can turn 1 discard and then either spend the Lotus Petals to cast Sylvan Library on turn 1, or hope to draw another land and then I can discard and spend the Lotus Petals for Sylvan Library, or just spend them. Or if I draw another land, I could discard and only have to spend 1 Lotus Petal for Sylvan Library, or if they didn't have anything good in their hand, I could not discard and just use the lands to make Sylvan Library if the land could get me green. But anyway, so I keep this hand and I actually put back the Brainstorm. Brainstorm's not really good in this hand anyway. You don't have a blue land, so you'd have to spend a Lotus Petal on it. And the library theoretically gives me some draw power, so I'm really just looking for this library to resolve. So take a look at their hand, and it's not really got any counter magic in it. So what I decide to do is I'm gonna take the Inquisition, and then hopefully they'll ponder. And even if they find a Force of Will, I can duress next turn and then hopefully resolve the Sylvan Library. So I just take the Inquisition and pass. And they end up just leaving a land up, which is kind of an interesting play. And I wasn't really sure where what was going on with that, but I didn't draw another land, so I just duress again. And they play Veil of Summer. Right? There it is. Yep, Veil of Summer. So I know that this was their draw for the turn. And so arguably I should play, or like, arguably I could wait another turn and then they'll probably duress and I might draw another land and everything, and then I could play the Sylvan Library next turn, but I decided to just run the library out now. Rather than risk, them drawing some discard or something. If they, maybe they didn't even have another land to use it on, but anyway. So I decided to just run the library out, and I think it's defensible anyway. It's going to resolve, and you don't risk anything bad happening. And the idea here is that library is going to give me enough card advantage that I can actually end the game. So they play their Spell Bomb and pass, and I draw some decent cards off the library. I really need this land, and I want to keep the contract. So I think I put back that island, and I pay 4 life for the Polluted Delta, which I play, and then duress them, and then I pass. And I take a force, which is a good. Oh no, I took the Brainstorm. So that we need to look a little closer at that set of revealed cards. I think that one's gone. These are the cards that were revealed. Notion Thief, Force of Will, Grove of the Burn Willows. Obviously they don't have 4 lands yet, so they can't cast a Notion Thief. Arguably I should take the Force of Will here. But I was kind of hoping that I would be able to keep them off of... basically keep them from finding the 4 lands to be able to cast the Notion Thief for a little while, so they have to hold it, and then I can either find a discard spell to get rid of it or the Force, or I can cast this into the Force to try and get rid of the Notion Thief. So I think they... Okay, so they hit a land drop there, and they ponder. Oh, they had the land already in their hand, and they ponder, so the ponder was probably their draw for the turn. Presumably next turn they're going to have enough mana for the Notion Thief, so I really need something, a way to get rid of it this turn, because again, I can't really deal with the Notion Thief. Even though I did bring Abrupt Decays in for this game, since I saw Leovold last game, I still don't really have a way to deal with the Notion Thief. It basically turns off my ability to win the game. So, and it's a much too quick clock with my current life total to be able to try to naturally draw into a Tendrils kill. So I find a Tendrils, which is I don't really need right now, but I think I do want this Dark Writ. So I hang on to the Dark Writ, and I go down to 8 life, and I just fucking throw this contract out there. Hardcast Contract would be very good if it resolves. It'll put me up on cards ahead of them. Probably not going to resolve, which is fine, because it means that hopefully they have to get rid of their Notion Thief, which in fact is what happens. So they Force Will that and pitch Notion Thief. So I wouldn't know if I'm saying I'm in a great position here. In fact, it feels like a pretty bad position. But I at least got rid of the Notion Thief, which means that the game is still winnable at this point. So they draw with a Spell Bomb. So they'll be a little ahead of me on cards, but I'm still seeing a good number of cards with the Sylvan Library. Although my life total is starting to get low, so I can't use the library super aggressively. So Ponder's a good draw here. Doomsday is a pretty good draw, but I'm not that close to killing with Doomsday, and so I actually decided to put it back, and I put back the land, and what I end up doing here is basically just pondering, using the ponder to shuffle and try to look for something that might be more useful. And again, Abrupt Decay doesn't hit anything right now. The land is just so-so, and Doomsday is just so-so with what I'm at. And also, another thing worth noting, the way my deck is currently set up, there aren't really any good pass-a-turn piles. It's just, I don't know, because you're using Tendrils and you don't have Experimental Frenzy to loop with, you can't really do pass-a-turn piles, unless you have a ton of mana to work with. So I just throw that back. I shuffle and draw a Cabal Ritual, which is a decent draw. Pass turn. What does my opponent do? They ponder, so they're drawing at least as well as I am at this point. can't remember what they did with that ponder. Did they shuffle it? They did not shuffle that ponder, which is a bad sign. So at this point, it's reasonable to assume they have some counter magic. But, let's see. So use Sylvan Library's ability. Alright, so we're starting to get to the point where it could potentially try to win the game. Getting close to it anyway. So, I put back the Doomsday in one of the ponders. I'm trying to fill up my graveyard a little bit so that Cabal Ritual does something. I'd love to be able to get it to Threshold. So I ponder here, and this is actually a really, really great ponder. Because I'll be able to use Sylvan Library to draw an extra card next turn. So if I take, say, the Lion's Eye Diamond, if I'm going to keep this, I'm going to take one of them. And then I'm going to, next turn, I'll draw one naturally for my draw step, and then I'll be able to pay 4 life to draw the second, or the last one with Sylvan Library. I'll have all these cards in my hand, and that's a kill with Doomsday. Now, the issue, of course, is that they probably have counter magic. But I kind of don't really have any better options at this point, and I need to try to kill them eventually. So I'd keep the Lion's Eye Diamond in hand and just pass turn. And then on their turn, they mess around with their lands a bit, tap something wrong, and then play Dak Vaden. So Dak Vaden's a huge issue. It's going to draw them so many cards. It's definitely going to run away with the game. So I am now officially out of time. I definitely need to try to go off, because I just don't have any more time to wait. It's not going to get better. So I draw 2, and I pay 4 to put the Brainstorm back on my deck and keep the Doomsday. And now remember that Brainstorm on top of my deck, because it ends up sort of being important. So I cast a Ritual, they let it go. Cast the second Ritual, they let it go. And now I cast Doomsday, and it gets forced. Or, sorry, Lion's Eye Diamond first, now Doomsday, and it gets forced. So they force pitching Snapcaster Mage. Obviously, at this point, they could have another Veil of Summer, or they could have Flusterstorm, or really a lot of stuff that's going to kill me. But there's not anything I can do about that. So the game plan here, where I'm at now, if we think about this, if I ponder and crack the LED for black, ponder into Brainstorm, into Tendrils, that's 8 Storm, which is one life short. But if they cast something like a Brainstorm or whatever, I don't even know what they would cast, I might be able to win the game somehow. I at least can put them to a very low life total, and then try to somehow claw my way back out of the game by casting another Tendrils, because I do have 2 Tendrils in my deck at this point. So it wouldn't be impossible for me to do a big Tendrils and then a mini Tendrils and still win the game. So it's fine to try and do that. So I'm going to be able to ponder into the Brainstorm that I know is on top of my deck, and then hopefully Brainstorm into a Tendrils. So I cast Ponder without cracking the LED, because I'm still planning to be able to crack the LED in response to the Brainstorm. And here they do me a huge favor, and they surgical my Doomsday, and pay life. So if I can find a Tendrils off this Ponder now, it's going to be lethal. I let them shuffle my deck and thin my deck a little bit, taking the Doomsdays out. And then before the Ponder resolves, I very cleverly remember to crack my LED. So I got 4 mana available. So at this point, I could ponder into another cantrip into Tendrils, or just right into the Tendrils and have a shot to win this game. So I Ponder resolves, and there are 2 Tendrils of Agony. So perfect for me. Very, very lucky once again. I definitely don't think this game had much to do with skill, or it certainly didn't feel like it. It felt like my opponent made a lot of errors, and I mean, I suppose I played relatively tightly. I don't think I made any egregious mistakes. but my opponent definitely did, and they died because of it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. No lessons to be learned. I'm not a huge fan of this deck list, and the lesson, I guess, is better lucky than good.